Welcome to another week of Cinema One and Only. This is number 18 for the week of April 17th to April 23rd. My name is Mr. J. This is our fourth Easter week, I believe. And we will start off this week, as we usually do, with our deep astrology horoscope from the Leo King. We're adding a new selection in this section this week. As a matter of fact, we're adding two new selections because we have noticed the energy field that's causing the magnetic poles to migrate a lot faster than they have been. So we're going to keep track of this each week and follow this up with the earthquake reports from Dutch Sense. I believe he's on to something. This man has been doing earthquake reports for the last decade and trying to tell scientists that movement in the tectonic plates are different than what they think. And now he's proving it, so we should follow this every week. What you're listening to right now is deep sleep music, and it's 10 hours if you want to try this. We have some other mood music, Beethoven, William Tell Overture. And we had some sad news this week. Our bass player with the Mark Hopkins Trio passed away. And we have two clips from one of our shows that we did back in 2000, I believe it was. Then we get into our concert section with Johnny Cash this week. Some songs we haven't heard. This is a concert where he did a little different selection of songs than he usually did. And then these are some of the songs that we enjoy listening to, which brings us into another informative TV special about the Mamas and the Papas. And the reason why we're showing this is because of the connection with John Sebastian. And as we go through this, and as you see, you will notice that the history of the Lovin' Spoonful, John Sebastian, and the Mamas and the Papas are quite closely related. I'm spending a lot of time on John Sebastian this week and last week because there are a lot of songs in these concerts that we do and a lot that we don't do. And I'd like to pick up some of the ones that we haven't been doing and work on those. These are some other songs that we pick up during the Saturday morning CBS show. It's Saturday sessions, and a lot of the songs on here are songs that we're working on. We have a guitar lesson by Dan Holloway. First time we've had a guitar lesson. And then we have some other selections for those that would like to learn any of these songs, or if you just want to listen. It's nice, peaceful, relaxing music, as are these aerial photos or videos from a drone. Which takes us into our spiritual section, because we've been doing this area of life where it's totally different than the kind of life we're used to, and maybe a lot of people don't get to see perhaps the way we lived 10,000 years ago. Some people are still living that way today. And a little prayer to guide us in the right direction for our spiritual section. This is part 4 of Gerald Clark's lecture on the Anunnaki of Nibiru. By the time you finish listening to this, you should have a pretty good idea of who they are. And Matthew LaCroix will verify a lot of the things that Gerald Clark explains to you. These are all interesting spiritual interest for people that have eyes to see. It's part 1 of a gravity theory. It's the gravity series. Part 1, Gerald Clark. And BP Earthwatch explains the first book of Adam. This is new for our spiritual section. This is excellent. Tells the story of Joseph Smith and how that's related to the second coming of Jesus Christ, and how that's related possibly to the UFO and the Antarctica story, and a civilization that was found flash frozen in Antarctica, and Ancient Astronaut Archives is beginning Tablet 1 of the Enuma Elish. This is a must read for those of you that would like to know the very first origins of life, the human race. Secret Ancient American History. Also an important documentary to listen to. Chapter 4 of The End of Days. This is a book written by Zecharia Sitchin. And after that, we need some music. I mean, excellent violinist. And we are in the Woodstock days with our musical interludes. Jefferson Airplane. Springtime always reminds me of Woodstock for some reason, and this music just ushers in spring. Some of our favorite songs. Then we get into the movie section, starting out with the oldest of the movies, silent movies, the original Our Gang. We had a couple of these this week. This was a 23rd one. I think we have the 11th one on this week somewhere too. Serials, a few Betty Boop cartoons, previews. We have a couple of colored Little Rascal shorts. Well, some more previews. And a colored Betty Boop animated short. And Shirley Temple has been our feature in this section for the last couple of weeks. This is another movie with Shirley Temple, 1936. And Mickey Rooney, another one of our boyhood child stars. There it is, number 11 of the silent Our Gang, original Our Gang films. This is the 11th one made. And we're lucky to get a couple of Three Stooges in color this week. Next week we have a black and white movie. They did only 3 or 4 movies, I think, during the course of their career. And we found the W.C. Fields Golf Specialist, a real funny short. Used to be shown in the theaters from 1930. Then our series this week features Charlie Chan. We have 4 Charlie Chan movies. That brings us into the musical section with Smiley Burnette and the Sons of the Pioneers. And into the ventriloquist section with Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy. Check in on Jeff Dunham this week. Meet Ahmed, the dead terrorist. And Preacher Bill, that's a different ventriloquist. I haven't seen him before. And Benny Hill does a ventriloquist act. Ray Allen we saw last week, and Jay Johnson's back with 2 clips this week. I hope he does the one that sent him flying over the podium. It was so funny. He was fighting with his monkey. Then, Martin and Lewis. This is a TV show, Colgate Comedy Hour, with their guest Burt Lancaster. We're going to have a Burt Lancaster suspense radio show coming up soon. And we end this with a movie, in this section with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. It's a color movie from 1955, followed by another Colgate Comedy Hour, this time with Abbott and Costello, which brings us to the radio Abbott and Costello shows from 1943. Jimmy Durante. And now we start the Comic Weekly Man. This is from 1951, and it begins the comic book characters, or the comic characters. First radio show of Pinocchio, Hopalong Cassidy, and then TV Hopalong Cassidy, and preview of the first Hopalong Cassidy movie that we showed last week. This week we have a selection of the 3rd, 32nd, 33rd, and the 36th Hopalong Cassidy movie. John Wayne in The Three Musketeers. Serial, followed by Phantom Empire, another serial, this one with Gene Autry. And we have radio show from Gene Autry and another radio show from the 40s. This time a TV episode from Roy Rogers, which brings us into a black and white Cisco Kid TV episode. And we have a color TV episode just to show you the comparison between the color and the black and whites. Then we have another Comic Weekly Man. This one's from 1952 and begins our science fiction section. Changed the format a little bit this week, and we begin with Space Patrol instead of Flash Gordon, because we have 2 Space Patrol episodes and I wanted to split them up. But here's the radio Flash Gordon and the serial Flash Gordon, previews, and a movie this week. Teenagers from Outer Space was the first appearance of famous person. I'll let you watch it and you can guess who it was. And there's that Space Patrol. Now, another Comic Weekly Man, this time from 1953. And now we move into the Tarzan radio shows, followed by another serial, The New Adventures of Tarzan, Chapter 3. and a movie with Buster Crabbe, Tarzan Fearless, and a color television episode from the Epic Adventures of Tarzan. Then we get into the Superman section. We have a number of selections that are related to Superman and his evolution in the radio, TV, and movies. And continuing into the animated Batman, little shorts, Ant-Man, Iron Man, Spider-Man. These are all little satire shorts, about 5 minutes long. It's about the third or fourth week we've had a number of these. And the Class 101 this week is on the Trinity. Justice League. And finally, episode 5 of Prince Namor, followed by chapter 6 of the serial Captain America. A preview here of the original Batman serial. This is a clip that shows all the different actors that played Batman in the movies. And we have a movie this week with Vincent Price and Agnes Moorehead. It was probably considered the first Batman movie in some ways. It's called The Bat. Brings us to the Lone Ranger serial. The Lone Ranger Rides Again. And this episode, number 27 from season 1 of The Lone Ranger, is in black and white. And then we have another 1 hour color Lone Ranger TV episodes. And episode 18, which is part 1 of the Green Hornet, and we put part 2 on so you don't have to wait another week. Which brings us to this TV series, and we have more intros from the series of the 1950s. An example of a 1950s TV show, Mickey Rooney. This is the 13th week that we've run Hey Mulligan, Mickey Rooney's TV show. One of a few that he had. Amos and Andy visit Maine this episode, followed by another Amos and Andy TV episode, Topper with his 3 ghosts, Life of Riley. This episode is in particularly interesting because instead of the usual man that plays Riley, we have Jackie Gleason. A little different there. We get into the serials, Smilin' Jack, Mystery Squad, chapter 9 and 10. Dick Tracy returns, chapter 3, and then to the radio shows, Dick Tracy. And we have Arthur Godfrey from 1949. Let's click on Arthur Godfrey, listen to a little bit of him.
Let's have another cup of Lipton tea. Lipton tea and Lipton soup presents Arthur Godfrey at his talent scout. Here comes Arthur Godfrey, your talent scout and tea. Brought to you by Lipton, Lipton tea. You know it's Lipton tea, it's T-R-I-S-K. You know it's Arthur Godfrey when you hear them say.
All right, from Arthur Godfrey, Whatever Became Of, we're continuing that. This week it's Our Gang. Then we have Our Miss Brooks, My Friend Irma, Suspense, and a Suspense TV show as well. That TV show will lead us into the movie section where we finish up with the Giants of Rome, and then our spiritual section this week, Day of Triumph and Jesus of Nazareth Part 2. And then we finish, like we usually do, with our Lakeland video. And that is it for our Cinema One and Only playlist. And now we want to go to our Cinema One Only on the weekends. And we can do that. What we want to do is go down here. On the weekend, we are showing Star Wars Clone Wars. First selection. Second, the Wolverine. Our third selection is the Batman. And number 4, Star Wars 3. Finishing up the second or original storyline of Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker. Now for our dailies, we move over here, and we have season 7 of Smallville. Finishing up this season, and we'll be starting season 8. These are the dailies. Yeah, that's Wonder Woman next. We show one disc a day from each one of these. Linda Carter, Wonder Woman. Then in the fourth slot is Superman. These are the dailies. Season 1 of Gotham begins this week too. And Clone Wars. We also have Clone Wars on the dailies as it gets closer to the weekend. As it ties in with the weekend and the Star Wars that we ended up on the weekend, and the Star Wars Clone Wars that we ended up on the weekend. This sort of finishes the story that continues from here, from these. And that's it for this week. From Cinema One and Only. Whoa. Did I block myself out there? Well, anyway, this is Mr. J from Cinema One and Only, and we will be back with you again next week.